Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Earth's defense system activated. What happened next terrified the galaxy. The massive chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices as thousands of representatives from across the Milky Way gathered. The room itself was a marvel of alien engineering, with walls that seemed to shimmer between solid and transparent, revealing the star-studded blackness of space beyond. Floating platforms, arranged in concentric circles, held delegates of all shapes, sizes, and biological compositions. Some breathed methane, others floated in liquid tanks, and many appeared in holographic form from distant worlds. Supreme Counselor Tovgon moved to the central podium, his blue-tinged skin catching the light from above. Despite his small stature, his presence commanded instant attention as he raised a four-fingered hand. Silence fell across the chamber. Esteemed representatives, his amplified voice reached every corner of the vast space. I bring grave news. Our deep space monitoring network has confirmed that the Varan Armada has changed course. He gestured, and the holographic display above the central floor shifted to show a massive fleet of angular, predatory-looking vessels. Red trajectory lines extended from their position toward a small, blue-green planet. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as the implications became clear. The Vodan forces have set course for Sal 3, designation Earth. He continued, his voice now somber, a planet we have long classified as a death world. The term death world sent a new wave of whispers through the chamber. All present knew what it meant. A planet with environmental conditions so harsh that evolution produced only the most resilient, aggressive species. Worlds, where competition for resources created predators of unmatched ferocity. Counselor Han, representative of the peaceful MRI collective, rose from his seat. His tall, slender form towered over those nearby, his pale skin was almost luminescent under the chamber lights. And we intend to do nothing? Han asked, his voice carrying a hint of disbelief. These humans know nothing of interstellar threats, they believe themselves alone in the universe. Defense Minister June shifted in her seat, the scaled ridges along her arms flexing with irritation. She stood slowly, her stocky frame balanced perfectly despite the gravity adjustments in the chamber. The Vodan have decimated 3 of our most advanced worlds, June replied coldly. Taros Prime fell in 6 days despite their planetary shield network. The colony on Vega 9 was reduced to ash in hours. What chance do primitive humans have with their chemical rockets and nuclear weapons? She gestured dismissively. Perhaps the Frodin will exhaust their resources there, she added, turning back to our territories. Many nodded in agreement. The tactical logic was sound. The Vodan conquest machine required enormous resources, and a detour to Earth might buy the Council precious time to strengthen defenses elsewhere. This is unconscionable, protested H, his ears flattening against his skull in distress. We have observed these humans for centuries. Yes, they are violent and unpredictable, but they have art, music, and children, who know nothing of galactic politics. We must warn them. An observer from the Science Guild, Sun, raised her appendage. When acknowledged, she spoke carefully, our studies suggest humans might possess unusual adaptability. While technologically primitive, they display remarkable psychological resilience and problem-solving capabilities. Irrelevant, even if they tune their most powerful weapons, it would barely scratch Frodin hull plating. Their military is divided by national boundaries. They would be conquered before they could mount a unified defense. In the lower tiers, representative men from the Humanitarian Alliance stood. What of the Galactic Charter? Article 7 clearly states our obligation to warn prion species of imminent extinction-level threats. Article 7 has exceptions for strategic necessity, Jim countered. The Vodan cannot know we are observing their movements. A warning to Earth would reveal our intelligence network, Counselor Young interjected. An ancient member, whose species communicated through color patterns that rippled across their translucent skin, flashed a series of concerned purples and reds. The translation system conveyed, perhaps we underestimate these humans, our limited interactions with their kind have shown them to be quite unpredictable. Unpredictable does not mean capable, said June. Our simulations give them a survival probability of less than 3%. Tai raised his hand again, calling for order as the debate threatened to spiral. The Strategic Council has already voted on this matter, 7-2 against intervention. H stepped forward, breaking protocol. Then the Strategic Council is making a terrible mistake. We watched the cow perish rather than reveal ourselves, and now their entire civilization exists only in our archives. Must we repeat this moral failure? The situations are not comparable, Tay responded firmly. The Krell faced a natural disaster, the humans faced the Frodin, who would certainly detect any rescue attempt and follow our ships back to populated systems. On the display above, the red trajectory lines extending from the Frodin fleet pulsed ominously as they approached the Sol system. Earth, a small blue dot, seemed insignificant against the Armada's might. What of limited contact, suggested Representative Kwan. A single ship, a warning beacon with basic defense schematics. June shook her head. The Vodun would detect any transmission. They'd monitor all frequencies during approach to new conquest targets. The chamber grew quiet as the reality settled in. Earth would face the Frodin alone, unaware until alien ships appeared in their skies. I move, H said finally, accepting defeat but unwilling to abandon the humans completely. We should witness what happens, we owe them that much. Tai nodded slowly. Observation is permitted. The cloaked monitoring vessel will maintain position in the SA system, full records will be kept for the archives. H's expression showed his disgust at this clinical approach. So we will document their extinction rather than prevent it. The motion for intervention is denied, Tai declared, ignoring H's remark. We will observe only. May whatever gods they worship have mercy on these humans, added another voice as the meeting adjourned. Later, Han approached Sun from the Science Guild. Your data on human adaptability, how confident are you in those assessments? Sun glanced around before answering quietly, more confident than I admitted publicly. Humans evolve on a planet with constantly changing threats. They are one of the few species we've studied that actively seeks out challenges rather than avoid them. They're certainly violent, but their capacity for cooperation under external threat is remarkable. Not remarkable enough to survive the Frodin, Han said bitterly. Sun's expression remained neutral. Perhaps, but if any species might surprise us, it would be the humans. She paused before adding, I didn't expect an easy conquest. They have never encountered a Death World species before. Han looked back at the holographic display where the Vodun fleet continued its inexorable approach to the unsuspecting blue planet. For the human sake, he said softly, I hope you're right. Commander Day stood tall on the bridge of the Rodin flagship Eternal Conquest. His gray skin gleamed under the blue lights of the command center, and 6 black eyes arranged in a perfect circle on his face blinked independently as he studied the small blue planet growing larger on the main view screen. Earth, a primitive world that will soon join the long list of Rodin conquests, he announced. Status report, he ordered, his voice deep and rasping. His second-in-command, Officer Null, approached with a data tablet. The humans have only just detected our fleet. Their primitive scanning technology registered our presence when we passed their lunar orbit. Their global communications networks are erupting with panic. Day made a sound that might have been a laugh in his species. Play some of their transmissions. The ship's computer began translating and broadcasting frantic human communications throughout the bridge. Military channels from various nations crackled with alarmed voices. News broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Government emergency alerts blared warnings to confused populations. Fascinating, remarked D, they still operate as separate territorial units, no unified planetary defense. He turned to his weapons officer. How long until optimal firing position? 3 minutes to optimal range, Commander, replied Officer Null. Commander Day nodded and walked to the tactical display. The holographic map showed Earth's surface with key military installations highlighted in red: missile silos, Air Force bases, naval fleets, command centers, all identified during months of covert surveillance. The Galactic Council believes these humans are dangerous, Day told his bridge crew. They label Earth a death world and humans as predators, but look how primitive they remain. He gestured at the planet. No orbital defenses, no energy weapons, their most powerful bombs would barely scratch our hull plating. Officer Null approached carefully. Intelligence suggests they are unusually adaptable, Commander. Perhaps caution. Caution. Day interrupted sharply. We conquered the Meson in 6 days, and they had planetary shields. These humans still burn fossil fuels. He turned back to the view screen. They will make excellent labor forces once subdued. Begin the bombardment, target their military installations first. Yes, Commander. Bombardment commencing. The Voden ships positioned themselves strategically around the planet. Bright purple beams of energy stabbed downward through Earth's atmosphere. Where they touched, destruction followed. Colonel Kim crouched behind a shattered concrete wall, dust coating his uniform. 6 hours earlier, he had been conducting a routine training exercise with his unit outside Seoul. Now, the world had changed forever. The sky above the city burned orange and black. Alien ships, massive and angry, hung in the air like deadly, metallic insects. Their weapons had destroyed South Korea's military headquarters in the first wave. Similar reports came in from across the globe before communications began failing. Status report, Kim called to his communications officer. Lieutenant Gill crawled over, keeping low as another explosion rocked the area. Sir, we've lost contact with Central Command. The government has relocated to emergency bunkers. Most of our Air Force was destroyed in the initial attack. Kim nodded grimly. And the alien craft that went down near the river? Scout team reports it's mostly intact. The aliens inside are dead. They look nothing like us, sir. Kim studied the faces of his 20 remaining soldiers. They were scared but determined. Good fear keeps soldiers alive when used properly. Listen up, he said. Gather, bring them closer. This is not just a Korean fight anymore, this is humanity's fight. These aliens expected us to break immediately, to surrender. He pointed toward the crashed alien craft, barely visible through the smoke, half a kilometer away. That ship contains technology we need. We're going to retrieve it, study it, and use it against them. Over here, a young soldier asked, pointing at the massive alien ships overhead. Yes, Kim replied without hesitation. They don't understand humans, we don't break easily. They moved quickly through the ruined city, using underground passages where possible. Everywhere, Kim saw not just destruction but also signs of human resilience, civilians helping each other from collapsed buildings, makeshift medical stations in subway tunnels, people already organizing and adapting. When they reached the downed alien shuttle, Kim was impressed. The craft was smaller than he expected, perhaps 20 meters long with strange, angular wings. Its hull was damaged but largely intact, with smoke still rising from a ruptured structure near what appeared to be an engine. Secure the perimeter, Kim ordered as his soldiers spread out. He approached the craft cautiously. A portion of the hull had cracked open, revealing the interior. Inside were 2 dead aliens, gray-skinned beings with 6 black eyes and exoskeletons covering portions of their bodies. Their environment suits had failed when the craft crashed. The control panel still glowed with strange symbols. Sir, Lieutenant Gill called, examining what appeared to be a weapon, look at this. The device is smaller than a human rifle but clearly designed as a weapon. Gill carefully picked it up. Don't point that at anyone, Kim warned. We need to gather everything we can carry, weapons, communication devices, anything that looks important. From the cloaked council observation vessel in orbit, Agent Wu watched the unfolding invasion with growing fascination. Her ship, barely larger than a shuttle, maintained position behind Earth's moon. Its advanced stealth systems kept it hidden from both humans and Rodan. "Are you recording all of this?" she asked her pilot, who nodded silently. The Vodan attack had been devastating in its precision and power. Major military installations worldwide had been destroyed in the first hour. Human air forces scrambled in desperate defense, only to be swatted from the skies like insects. Conventional wisdom said the war should already be over, yet something unexpected was happening. Wu zoomed in on Seoul, where her sensors had detected a small group of humans approaching a downed Froden shuttle. Despite the catastrophic attack on their city, they moved with purpose, not panic. They were already salvaging alien technology. Similar scenes played out elsewhere. In North America, humans had captured a Froden ground soldier alive. In Europe, they were already establishing underground communication networks after their satellites were destroyed. "This doesn't match the models," Wu's pilot commented. "The simulations gave humans hours, maybe days, before total surrender." Wu nodded her brow. The models didn't account for their psychology. She initiated a secure transmission to the Galactic Council. Her report would be brief but significant. Initial Vodan assault has devastated Earth's formal military structures, conventional defense capabilities neutralized. Human casualties are in the millions. She paused, watching as the human colonel on her screen organized the retrieval of Rodan technology. However, human response deviates significantly from predicted patterns. They are not retreating, they are not surrendering, they are adapting. These humans reorganize almost immediately and prioritize technology acquisition over escape. She ended the transmission and continued watching. The Rodan have conquered worlds far more advanced than Earth, but always through overwhelming force and fear. They had never encountered a species that grew more determined with each loss. "I wonder," Wu whispered to herself, "if the Rodan have any idea what they've just started." 6 months had passed since the day the sky fell, 6 months of fire, death, and learning, 6 months of humanity proving why they had survived on their harsh world for so long. Professor Sun wiped sweat from his forehead as he stood before the assembled military leaders. The underground command center, buried deep beneath what used to be Pangchang Olympic facilities, hummed with equipment salvaged from around the world. The air was stale despite the best efforts of the recycling systems. Everyone had grown used to the smell of too many humans working in too little space. "The breakthrough came 3 weeks ago," Sun said, gesturing to the holographic display. The blue light illuminated the tired faces of generals, admirals, and resistance leaders from 6 continents. "We finally understood how the Frodin shield technology manipulates energy." On the display, a complex molecular structure rotated slowly. It represented the nanoscale material that powered the seemingly impenetrable Rodan shields, the same shields that had made their ships and battle armor nearly invulnerable to human weapons. "The frequency modulation is the key," he explained, pointing to a particular section of the structure. "Their shields work by creating a resonance field that disperses energy, but we've discovered that a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse can disrupt this resonance temporarily." An older man with a heavily scarred face leaned forward. "How temporary?" "Our adapted EMP weapons can disrupt their shields for 3 seconds, Sun replied. "Enough time for conventional weapons to penetrate." General Park, the overall commander of Earth's United Resistance Forces, nodded slowly. Her uniform bore no national insignia. Countries and national boundaries had become meaningless in the fight for human survival. "We've already distributed the modifications to resistance cells worldwide," she said. "The counterattack begins tomorrow." The room erupted in murmurs. 6 months of barely surviving, of watching Earth's cities burn, of fighting with salvaged alien weapons and desperate courage, and now, finally, a real chance to hurt the invaders. "There's more," Park continued when the noise subsided. "We've received outside help." This statement caused an even greater stir. Park raised her hand for silence. "I can't explain fully, but we've made contact with another alien group. They've provided critical intelligence about the Vodan and their weaknesses. Their representatives are here now." The heavy blast doors at the far end of the command center opened, and two figures entered, clearly not human. They had blue-tinged skin, large eyes, and stood slightly shorter than an average human. The room fell silent. "This is Counselor Han and Science Officer Son of the Galactic Council," Park said carefully. "They come in peace and offer help against the Frodin." Han stepped forward, a translation device at his throat converting his speech to clear English. "The Council doesn't officially acknowledge this meeting," he told the assembled humans, "but our leadership voted against intervention, and some of us recognized the potential in your species." A general from what had been Russia stood up. "Where were you when they came?" "When our cities burned." "Watching," Han admitted. "Many believe your species would fall quickly. The Verodin have conquered worlds far more advanced than yours, yet here we stand." Park said firmly, "And now we fight back." After the meeting disbanded, Park led Han and Son to a smaller strategy room. Maps showing broadened positions worldwide covered the walls. Red markers indicated alien strongholds, blue showed human resistance bases. "Your adaptation rate is remarkable," Son said, examining the maps. "In 6 months, you've learned to use Frodin technology, established global communication networks despite their jamming, and now developed countermeasures to their shields." "Necessity," Park replied simply. "Adapt or die." Han placed a small device on the table. It projected a detailed schematic of Rodin ship architecture. "This will help you target critical systems. Their command vessels are particularly vulnerable here, and here," he indicated specific points. "Why help us now?" Park asked. Han's large eyes seemed to shimmer with emotion. "The Council has monitored 177 species conquered by the Frodin, none lasted more than 2 weeks before surrender, none adapted Frodin technology effectively, none coordinated global resistance. You are different, you might actually win." "We'll win," Park said with quiet certainty. "Thank you for this intelligence, it will save many lives." After the aliens departed in their cloaked ship, Park stood alone, studying the new information. Tomorrow would change everything. In orbit above Earth, Commander Day reviewed the latest planetary status reports with growing frustration. 6 months, and these primitives still fight, not only fight, but adapt in ways that defy all previous conquest models. "The North American resistance destroyed another supply convoy," Officer Null reported. "That's the 3rd this week, they're using our own weapons against us." Day slammed his fist on the console. "Impossible. How are they learning our technology so quickly?" "Unknown, Commander, but the humans appear particularly adept at weapons adaptation. They've even begun modifying our communication systems to bypass our jamming protocols," Null answered. Day paced the command deck. "The conquest that should have taken days has stretched into months. The initial victories had been easy, human military forces fell quickly under the superior Rodin technology, but then something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, humans scattered, regrouped, and began fighting in new ways. They attacked in small teams, striking quickly and disappearing into tunnel networks. They salvaged downed Frodin ships and weapons, and they seemed to communicate despite the Frodin jamming their official channels. Most disturbing of all, they were getting better." "Status of our ground forces?" Day demanded. "Control of major population centers and strategic resources is slipping. Our control zones are shrinking, and casualty rates among our forces have increased by 30% in the last month alone," Null reported. Before Day could respond, alarms blared across the command ship. Status screens flashed red. "What now?" Day growled. "Multiple attacks, simultaneous strikes against our positions in every control zone worldwide." Day rushed to the tactical display. "Impossible, the attack pattern shows coordination that should have been beyond human capabilities. Their global communication infrastructure was destroyed in the first days of the invasion, yet somehow they are launching perfectly synchronized attacks across the entire planet. How are they coordinating this?" he demanded. Then came the truly shocking report: "Commander, our shield systems are failing at multiple locations. The humans have deployed some kind of pulse weapon that temporarily disables our shields." Day stared at the tactical display in disbelief as reports flooded in of human forces breaching frozen positions that had been considered impregnable for the first time since the invasion began. Genuine fear crept into his mind. Direct our orbital weapons platforms," he ordered. "Target all detected human attack formations." "Sir," came the reply, "many of the human forces are in population centers. The collateral damage would be catastrophic." "This ends now," Day snapped as he watched the orbital weapons preparing to fire. He finally understood what made humans different from every other species. The Vodan had conquered other species, but those species fought to survive, to avoid extinction. Humans fought harder because of the threat of extinction. Each loss seemed to strengthen their resolve rather than break it. The tactical display continued to flash with reports of rodent forces falling to human attacks for the first time in his long military career. Commander Day faced a horrifying possibility: the Verodin might actually lose this war. Captain Lee took a deep breath as she strapped herself into the captured Frodin fighter. The cockpit felt alien despite the modifications. Where rodent pilots had 6 eyes, humans had only 2, so the visual displays had been completely redesigned. The control yoke, originally built for hands with 7 fingers, now featured a human-friendly grip wrapped in salvaged electrical tape. "Systems check," Lee said into her helmet microphone. Her onboard engineer, Sergeant Jin, replied from the cramped space behind her seat: "Propulsion at 92%, weapons at full capacity, shield modulator functioning." Lee gazed through the viewport at the other 11 ships of Eagle Squadron. Each was a captured Vodan fighter, modified in the same underground hangars where humanity had been preparing for this moment for weeks. The fighter's sleek, predatory shape still bore rodent markings, though now each displayed a hastily painted Earth emblem on its wing. "Eagle Squadron, this is Leader Lee. Com check, 1, 2, 3, she broadcast. Her pilots responded in turn. "They are the best Earth has to offer, survivors from air forces around the world, united now under a single banner. National identities, Chinese, American, Russian, Brazilian, Nigerian, Indian, had faded in importance as humanity fought for survival. Mission briefing, one final time," Lee said. "Our technicians have completed the pre-flight checks. Earth Defense Command has coordinated a global offensive against rodent ground forces. Every resistance cell worldwide is attacking rodent positions simultaneously. While they're distracted, we slip past orbital defenses and strike their command ship." She pulled up the holographic display showing their target, the massive rodent flagship that had coordinated the invasion from the beginning, nearly 2 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. "It is the heart of the enemy force. Remember, we only get one shot at their command ship," Lee continued. "Once they detect us, their fighters will launch, we'll have minutes at most." "What about their shields?" Eagle 3 asked, a slight tremor in his voice. "Even with our new disruptors, the timing has to be perfect, that's why we're carrying these." Lee patched through a visual of the special torpedoes mounted under each fighter's wings, modified rodent warheads with human enhancements. "The shield frequency modulators are built in, they'll create their own disruption field on impact, then detonate." General Park's voice cut in over the command channel: "Eagle Squadron, ground defensive commences in 5 minutes, launch window opens in 10. Good hunting." Lee checked her instruments one final time. "Eagle Squadron, prepare for orbital insertion." Deep beneath them, the hidden launch bay's massive doors slid open, revealing the night sky above. One by one, the fighters rose on near-silent alien propulsion systems. The captured technology allowed them to ascend into the upper atmosphere with minimal heat signature, a crucial advantage for avoiding early detection. As they climbed higher, Earth's devastated landscape spread out below. Cities lay in ruins, vast areas showed the scars of rodent energy weapons. But there were also lights, human outposts and resistant strongholds, places where people refused to surrender. Passing the stratosphere, Lee announced, switching to space propulsion. The fighter engine shifted modes, adapted for vacuum operation, as the blackness of space enveloped them. Stars appeared with cold clarity below, the curve of Earth became apparent, the blue planet they were fighting to save. And then they saw their targets. The Votan orbital fleet hung above Earth like predatory insects, angular and threatening, with ships surrounding the massive command vessel. Normally, the fleet maintained a perfect defensive pattern, but tonight something was different. "Look at that," Eagle 2 said. "They're repositioning." "The ground attacks are working indeed," another pilot observed. "Many Rodan ships are maneuvering in response to the coordinated human offensive below. The perfect defensive screen now has gaps."